We're here. We're here. The Owl's Nest Barbecue Show, coming to you live from the Owl's Nest Barbecue Studios in Ooltewah, Tennessee. I'm your host, Steve Ray. This show is sponsored by the Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply and Pro Shop in Ooltewah for all of your barbecuing needs. It's the barbecue Owl's Nest Barbecue Supply and Pro Shop in Ooltewah. Also brought to you by Michelin Tires. Moving forward, Michelin Tires. And the Midnight Oil. I forgot where it worked. The Midnight Oil in Ooltewah for all your car care needs. If you're in the Chattanooga, Ooltewah area, please come and see us. Jeffrey Neal back at the homestead monitoring the chat room. We'd like everybody to jump in and talk with Jeff. No radio tonight. The radio station is off on the day after Thursdays, which means we will not be broadcasting on the radio, but we are broadcasting live on Facebook, and that's our home is anyway. We really appreciate it, man. We've got a great guest. I had a guest scheduled, and they canceled last minute, and I have never been. Jeff, this sounds terrible. I have never been so happy that somebody canceled at the last minute as I am right now, because folks, we got a ringer. We have brought in a ringer. Now this guy earned his broadcast journalism degree from Bradley University in Peoria. If it plays in Peoria, it'll play anywhere, right? Home to the Fighting Braves, featuring the strangest mascot in the country, Kaboom the Gargoyle. I kid you not. The most famous Bradley Brave alum, of course, is Charlie Steiner, sports broadcasting legend, 1971 graduate of Bradley. He became the anchor of ESPN Sports Center in 1988, and he was in the chair the 1993, the night Springer Carl Lewis sang the national anthem at the New Jersey Nets game, and he could not stop laughing the entire night. Charlie Steiner, an alum of Bradley University. But Charlie Steiner's not our guest. Now this guy, that's just where our guest went. But now this guy, he is a country music authority. He's a barbecue enthusiast, best-selling multi-cookbook author. He's based in Charleston, South Carolina. He has been the on-air host and operation manager of Charleston's leading radio stations. He has interviewed some of entertainment's biggest names. Now catch this: Taylor Swift, Darius Rucker, Paula Deen, Zach Brown, Ryan Seacrest, a guy that can count backwards from 10 on New Year's Eve better than anybody. Brad Paisley, one of the greatest guitar players. Garth Brooks, Keith Urban, Carrie Underwood, Alton Brown, and Elvis Presley. No, not Elvis. I just threw that in there. But it would be cool to talk to Elvis, wouldn't it? His blog at barbecuetricks.com and his YouTube channel have accumulated more than 10 million views and 40,000 plus subscribers. Ladies and gentlemen, native of Glenview, Illinois, the youngest of 6 children, I give you from Hilton Head, South Carolina, I give you Bill West. Bill, how are you, sir?
Good to be here, Steve. Thank you.
Wow, I can't.
You know what? I'm frightened. Don't ask me sports questions. I'm pretty good with barbecue, but you know Bradley University more than me. It's been a few years since I've been gone. I was concerned. I think the most I could tell you is when I was there, Hersey Hawkins was the big deal at the time.
Well, he was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's still.
But that's about my extent of sports.
Well, that's okay. We're not here to talk about sport. I'm just a big Charlie Steiner fan. And when I was doing my research for you, Bill,
That's amazing.
I went. I said I always like to do this with all our guests. It's just a lot of fun. And I saw famous alums, and he's the first one that pops up. And I went, Charlie Steiner. I didn't know he went to Bradley. And I remember watching Sports Center the night Carl Lewis. I don't know if you ever saw that YouTube, folks. If you are listening, if you want to see something fun, if you even know who Carl Lewis is, a lot of you folks don't even know who Carl Lewis is. Bill, do you know who Carl Lewis is?
I do not.
Okay, he was you're a lot younger than I am. He was a sprinter. He great runner, won several gold medals. I think he participated in maybe 3, maybe even 4 Olympics. And after his Olympic career was over, he thought he could sing, and he sang at the New Jersey Nets, the national anthem, and it was the only rendition I've heard ever worse was Roseanne Barr's. And Oh, it was terrible. And Charlie Steiner, they flashed back to Charlie Steiner on SportsCenter, and he could not stop laughing. He laughed and he laughed and laughed. That's when SportsCenter used to be actually a really good show. But I digress. We're talking barbecue tonight. And Bill West, the reason I'm having Bill on, and like I said, Bill, I'm so glad the other guy canceled at the last minute, because this is, you are such a better guest than that guy is. I'm not kidding. You're going to, this is a Thanksgiving gift.
I'm super pleased because it couldn't come at a better time. You know, I've done a couple of cookbooks, but this is, my last one, most recent one here, just came out a couple of days ago. And like, if you're going to be on talking about your book, Black Friday is the day to do it. That's probably one of the biggest days of the year for shopping. So I appreciate being here.
Well, like I've said, I always try to support all of those in the barbecue business when they come out with a book. Number one, I love reading about barbecue, and especially the ones that give you tricks, tips, and little tidbits. And that's what yours is, the big book of barbecue tricks right there by Bill West. I'm showing it to the camera right now, Bill. And Bill is holding his up as well. And I'm sure he got his on a better deal than I did. But I was glad to pay. I was glad to pay. The only thing I wished mine was autographed. That's the only thing.
I'll need to come to Chattanooga.
That would be so great. The big book of barbecue tricks. It is slam packed, 261 pages of recipes, tricks, tidbits, and one of the things, Bill, I got to be, and we're going to talk about barbecue. Don't worry, everybody, and we're going to talk about Bill's background, because he is one of the most interesting people that have ever been on the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show. But let's start it out, Bill. Smoking nuts. Because this is something that I have seen on the internet, on social media, as of the last 3 months, that has just becoming more and more popular. Cashews.
Really?
Yes, I've got a neighbor that did pecans, just the way you describe in your book. And it says most nuts are fair game on the smoker, however they can burn quickly at higher temperatures if you don't keep an eye on them. Thankfully, they're a better match for low and slow temperatures. How did you stumble across smoking nuts? Because I'm at that point in my barbecue career, I'm looking for other things, other than the four basic proteins that we usually cook. And this is such an interesting thing to put on the smoker. How did you come across it?
I can't remember the first time I jumped into it. My favorite thing to smoke is the pecans. And lately, actually over the last couple of years, I've done a lot of keto dieting, and pecans are great for that.
Yep.
And once you've had like raw nuts, you got to eventually have to have something to make it a little more interesting. So I think I started with pecans and added Worcestershire and almost like the Chex Mix flavors people are familiar with. All those kind of flavors, you mix them up, and just a little bit of pecan smoke on there adds it, kind of binds it on there and just gives it that much more flavor. So I started dehydrating, doing jerkies and dehydrating, and it kind of led to nuts and things that are kind of more cold smoked.
Yeah.
So yeah, just coming up with things for the different smoking recipes for all the books.
Well, that's what I like about it. People don't realize all the different things you can put on a smoker, put on a grill that you ordinarily would only put in your oven. I recently stumbled across smoked meatloaf, and literally changed my life. I kid you not. It is so good. Smoked meatloaf is just, I like meatloaf, but I love smoked meatloaf. It is just so much better than regular meatloaf cooked in the oven. I've seen people put apple pies in smokers. Baked potatoes, of course, and a range of things that go into smokers. And it's amazing the ideas and the inspirations that people get. Just backyard cooks like yourself and myself that, like, hey, I wonder if this will work. and they throw it in there for a couple hours, and and we're going to talk about something that I watched your. Let's do this. Let's talk about the history of Bill West, because I believe it or not, I've been a fan of yours for a very, very long time. And it goes back to the Outdoor Cooking Channel when you and Jack Waybor had the Great TV, GRATE TV series on the Outdoor Cooking Channel. And I don't know if a lot of people go back and watch those. I know you and Jack did a video back in June bringing back Great TV, and y'all smoked a certain thing we're going to talk about in a little bit. But tell us how you got into barbecue, how you got, because I thought the Great TV series was super. And
yeah, it was probably before its time, really looking at all the things going on now. We were real early on. It was essentially a video podcast. And I think there was, really, I know Kevin Bevington, who put together the Outdoor Cooking Channel, and, he talked to us early on about featuring us on that. And, we're not really tied in other than, he has featured us, and we love the exposure. But there was a service before that was kind of hot before YouTube that allowed people to do a true podcast and video podcast that we started doing. And the honest key to it, I had met Jack Waybor when I moved here to South Carolina, and he was immersed, and you can see it in all the videos. Mm-hmm. He's immersed in the South Carolina barbecue scene and competition. So I really didn't know anything about competition barbecue until I kind of connected with him, and I got a quick education in it. And I just thought those videos, the first time I met Jack, I proposed doing the show, and it was perfect timing for both of us to do it. And again, now it's probably, now it's the YouTube show like that is way more commonplace, I guess. Oh, yeah. But it was pretty new at the time. And, the thing is, and doing a weekly show can take a lot of time. And even then we were producing it, so to speak. So we were editing it together with honestly not much in the way of equipment. There wasn't as good of equipment back then to edit video, but I definitely had an interest in it. So we just kind of jumped into it, and it's easy and fun to talk about stuff that you're interested in.
Well, it was very interesting, and like you said, it was back when I started. It was one of the there weren't a lot of barbecue shows on. It was you. It was Greg Rempe was on the Outdoor Cooking Channel, and those were kind of my two go-to shows to watch on the Outdoor Cooking Channel. And you and Jack, I liked your the shows were one beer long. I always thought that was clever, that you could, as long as it took to drink one beer in a social, laid back setting. That's how long the show was, and y'all would just sit there and talk about barbecue. And of course, in those days, I knew. I don't know a great deal about it now, but I sure knew a lot less about it then. And everything that y'all would talk about, I would just sit there and go, and absorb that. And I'm going to try that, or that makes sense. And of course, and then all of a sudden, seeing Jack Waybor, all of a sudden he pops up on Barbecue Pitmasters. Then all of a sudden he pops up on American Grilled, and he's almost everywhere. And it was kind of neat following his on-air career.
Yeah.
And when he jumped from, I guess, Great TV to what he's doing now. And the one y'all put out in June was, I thought was very clever. You're sitting there in your new house on your new set, and you're smoking a watermelon. And I want to get back to that. But first, before we talk about smoking watermelons, tell me how you got from country music expert. And real quick, did you watch Ken Burns' documentary on country music?
Oh, sure.
Did you think it was as wonderful as I did?
Yeah, it was great.
I thought it was super. If you're a country music fan, especially being here in East Tennessee, it was great, and I'm sure you really appreciated it being so close to the industry. But how do you get from a country music aficionado, because you're in the Low Country, and that's a barbecue mecca where you're at.
Yeah, you know,
Talk
I
about
think
that.
I kind of just stumbled into it. I got into, before I moved to Charleston, I was in Augusta. And now I'd say Augusta is there's a lot going on in Augusta, Georgia. And it's a really good barbecue city as well. But I think I got my first like full sized hog cooker there and dabbled in cooking whole hog a little bit. And
Hmm.
then when I moved to Charleston for radio, ended up meeting Jack, and it just was ready. But I wouldn't say there's any connection between my working in country radio and talking barbecue. But I've been able to kind of take some of I probably, if I hadn't had a career in broadcasting and radio, I wouldn't have started doing great TV. And that's the interesting thing with before I met Jack and before we started Great TV, I was doing just the blog Barbecue Tricks. So it's funny looking back. Even earlier today, I was looking at some old things, and it's really the reason why I ended up putting this book together, because I've pieced together a lot of little things separately and tossed out a lot of tricks. And I kept telling myself, like, I can't. I'm relatively scattered. I can't. It's not easy to find stuff when you got different projects going.
Hmm.
I remembered I did a good podcast with um, Rodney Scott years ago that I did put it out, but I didn't do a whole heck of a lot. And I was watching. Got a big Netflix special. Looks like he's got a new book out, but I've got a lot of bits and pieces floating all over the place. And the name of my site was Barbecue Tricks. So I thought
Hmm.
I really need to figure out a way to pull these things together and not be so scattered. Because in general, it's kind of, I think, like everybody gets into it. It's just kind of a fun hobby. But at some point, I look back and I say, I got all this stuff out there. I'd like to be able to pull it together into a little bit of a collection that's somewhat organized thought. So that's why I did the book. And I think that's ultimately when I wanted to do more with the Great TV. That's what I was thinking as well. It just kept thing with YouTube and video and doing a live show every week. It's a lot of it's you got to keep up with it.
Well, yeah, you got to dedicate a certain amount of time and effort to it, and especially when you have a family. I think your son's 19 now. You said, and
Just turned 20. Yeah.
yeah, and my daughter is 20 years old. She just turned 20 in October, and you have to balance. You have to balance your hobby, your business, and your family. And I know what you're talking about, but it's fun to bring information to people. I've always been one of those types of people that, when I do something, I like to share it, and you're obviously the same type of person, uh, uh, much better at it than I am because 5 books into your career now, and this book, um, the barbecue tricks is it is just jam packed with little tidbits. When we watch episodes of Barbecue Pitmasters, before that Barbecue All Stars, we can go back and back and back, as late as American Barbecue Throwdown on Netflix. We see little things that these cooks do, and it'll be the most minute detail that people will pick out of a show and ask the people to explain, like, what were you doing in there with that? What is that thing? That's an injector. How does that work? Things that we wouldn't even think of that were interesting to people, they find that interesting, and that's what your book deals with, are these small things. And I'll give you an example. Uh, and this one is great. Another handy trick for spices. If you cook while you're traveling, I'm sure you travel a lot. Simple to create your own personal portable spice rack. Use a Monday through Friday 7-day pill organizer box to store travel-sized amounts of your favorite spices. That way you'll always have a little bit of your favorites on hand. I never would have thought of that. I don't travel that much, but when I do, that's something, because everybody likes to share their favorite rub. And what better way or what better container to put a rub in than a pill box?
I'm very pleased that you pulled out like that nugget, because there's a lot of little ones like that in the book that I thought, that's somewhere on my blog or website, and I don't think I've mentioned it in a great TV thing, but that's kind of what I just thought, let's put these little fun little things out there. But the internet is so big, it's hard to be able to use that stuff. So, and it's fun. I think it's fun stuff to talk about and fun things to think about. I didn't create that. I think that was for my brother-in-law, actually. But I thought, okay, that's kind of a trick. I'm going to write that down. And the tricks range from stuff like that to, using sprigs of rosemary as skewers for kebabs, or I think I say early in the book, some of the recipes in and of themselves are kind of tricks. I tried to mark it to prepare before we talk, but a couple of the recipes are in and of themselves tricks, like
Oh, I love this. Follow along at home. Turn to page what? It's like Bible study. Go ahead.
yeah, if you got page 190, I thought we've got a saltine potato salad. It's like, how can you make I found some great old saltine potato salads. Maybe that's a thing somewhere. I had never heard of it. It's where the saltine crackers are basically the binding. There's not potatoes in there, but it's the binding of the potato salad, and it's incredible. It's a great recipe. I think I was inspired by Justin Wilson, one of my favorite old TV chefs.
Yeah.
Had a bunch of different versions of it. It used to be popular back in the day, but I had never heard of it. So that's one I put in there. But I think that's kind of a trick to do that. So it was mentionable. And then you mentioned, like, in smoked meatloaves, this Subway fatty recipe is a recipe that also it's on the opposite page 191. I think that's a trick. It was actually a great TV episode and a Jack Waybor invention. But it's basically, he took a Subway sandwich, the Italian sub with like double meat, and got it deconstructed, and we put it in the middle of a smoked fatty, which is a smoked meatloaf. And wrapped it up with Italian sausage and put marinara on it. And it makes for the cost of a foot-long Italian sub, deconstructed, and a pound or two of a good Italian sausage that we wrapped it up in and smoked it, it made an incredible smoked meatloaf that, again, it's kind of a trick in itself. Just you get the ingredients, just go to Subway and ask for a deconstructed Italian sub. The minutia, the detail didn't matter as much as just the basic nuts and bolts of the Italian meal. So that's just another example of like tricks that, I'd done that. I don't even think that video that we did on YouTube got much traction. It probably maybe got 300, probably 500 views. And there's some videos that have gotten 1 million views, but I thought it was really one of the best ones. So I wanted to make sure I put it in the book and at least kind of had it organized somehow.
Yeah, and another one, another one I like, the vampire trick. If you found you've used too much garlic in a liquid recipe, they always say you can always put more, but you can't take out. If you found you've used too much garlic in a liquid recipe, there's a trick to soften the blow. Parsley absorbs garlic flavors. Put parsley in a tea ball and give it a swirl for a few minutes. Remove and then discard the fouled parsley. And you can reverse a mistake. And this book is just it's just jam packed with little tidbits like that, little suggestions. One of the things you've done in this book is you can tell that you're a journalist along the way by the different interviews that you have done throughout the book, calling them let's see, what is it, the talking chop. You've got Greg Mervich of Ballistic Barbecue. You've got an interview with him. James Piesker of Porter Road. You've got Louis Mata from Meat and Bone, Greg Rempe from the Barbecue Central Show, Jack Waybor from Great TV. and all of these interviews that you've done, it's all of a sudden you're becoming not the writer of the book, but you're getting them to reveal their secrets and reveal their methods.
Yeah, yeah. This though, actually, the book probably I've been talking about doing this book for a while, but when COVID hit back in February, I had a zillion notes on my phone for how the book of barbecue tricks. But when COVID hit, not only did I had some extra time because at my main job we ended up having some furloughs, so I had a forced several weeks to really focus in and drill down and put it together. So I thought I'm going to use this time. It's rare that you can plan time, which is the nature of the furloughs, just happened to work out. So I mapped it out and did these Zoom, Skype interviews just like we're doing, and talked to these guys, and they were all really generous with their time and with their insight. And I tried to get some good stuff, and then looking back and editing it down to squeezing it down to just the little bits. I found some good stuff, and it's been fun to even go and look back and in the editing process, go and find more and more things to pull out of it. I probably wish I could even go back now and connect the dots a little bit more, because looking back, I've seen like each one of those guys. I think almost each one of them were Big Green Egg fans. They liked Big Green Eggs and Weber Smoky Mountain cookers. They used everything, but they really loved. They had a real affection for those cookers. There's other similarities. Greg Rempe is always a straight shooter, and somewhere in the middle of the recipe, he said, "Look, I don't know." He started busting on the 3-2-1 method of cooking ribs, which is something I have in there. It's not my invention. Someone else has come up with a great way to do ribs. It's a trick in and of itself. It's 3 hours on 225, 2 hours wrapped up in foil for your slab of ribs, and then 1 hour out of the foil, and you just you sauce them up and let them cook, and the skin tighten up. 3-2-1 ribs, to me, is just so easy for people to remember. And yeah, you end up with fall off the bone ribs, but Greg was honest enough to shoot holes in that method, which I'm totally cool with. I know these hardcore competition guys will say, that's overcooked, and they're real particular on what kind of bite through they want. They want to take that rib bone, bite it, and almost make a little half moon circle on the bone, and it's got to come off with a little tug, and they get real particular on it. So I think there's room for everybody. I think the 3-2-1 method is great for people that want to keep it super simple. And I asked Greg Rempe how would he tweak it, and he actually gave me a really good suggestion of lowering the times, and he gave me some other good insight on things that he likes, and it's really good. I really enjoyed doing the talking shop sections with Greg and the guys from Porter Road. They're smart guys.
Yeah,
and interesting.
There's a lot of in the barbecue world. The more I talk with people, the more people I get to interview, I realize how little I know about this, because there are people out there, and you're one of them, Bill, that have been around a lot longer than I have, and have got to research it more, and especially living in a city like Charleston, man. You're in a barbecue, in a food mecca.
It's become a mecca. I don't know that it was right when I moved there in 2007. The thing that I found when I moved to, my favorite barbecue joint there's the competition world, then there's restaurants, and there's doing it in your backyard and just being a backyarder. But as far as Charleston, I came from Augusta, used to live in Savannah, and I think now Charleston is absolutely the best place for barbecue. Savannah doesn't have a whole heck of a lot. Augusta has one of my favorite places of all time Scaniers Barbecue, and Augusta is also the home of Rec Tech Grills, which I think is pretty cool now. I didn't know that at the time.
Yep.
But since I moved in 2007, they've opened up Lewis Barbecue, which is some of the best brisket you're ever going to get right downtown. And Rodney Scott is also got, I think, one of the best whole hog places in town. So those two alone are worth making a trip to Charleston to see those pits. But there's also some other great places.
Well, let's talk
Swiggins
about
in Charleston is one of my favorites, and there's a place called Sweatman's. That I think I should have said Scaniers in Augusta. Sweatman's is in Holly Hill, South Carolina, which is just outside of Charleston. So yeah, we got a ton.
Let's talk about Rodney Scott. Back in 2016, you made the pilgrimage to Hemingway, South Carolina, and did a great video, and it's on your YouTube channel, of Rodney Scott before Rodney Scott was Rodney Scott, when he was just another another barbecue guy in a wide spot in the road before he was made famous by the New York Times. Kind of compare and contrast now Rodney's restaurant in Charleston, and compare it to the store where he worked. I know it's night and day, but compare and contrast the food and the quality of the food and the taste of the food.
That's a great question. And I did when I went. I guess it was 2016. I didn't even remember the exact year, but
it was.
I was
I'm a
living.
Bill West fan. I said it was. I'm a Bill West fan.
Appreciate that. That one of that video has done really well. So I'm sure a lot of people have stumbled upon my site because of that. Thanks to Rodney, though. When I was shooting it, I mean, that really came about when I lived on that side of town of Charleston, but still, that's a good trek from even the north side of Mount Pleasant and north side of Charleston. But when I went there, I just knew that's visually that old place is just so cool. Mm-hmm. And he had some, definitely when you go in there, when I went in there, he had plenty of recognition already from, I don't know if he had gotten the New York Times, but I think so. I mean, Anthony Bourdain and all those guys had already gone through. So I think he was right on the cusp of things exploding when I just happened to go there. But I mean, to his credit, I went there and, he took an hour. I mean, he was working. And when you look at the video, he was working that whole time. But, it was clear he has a love for what he does. And I think I really am proud of that video piece, and just because it's more of, I think that's one of the things I enjoy doing, is more of almost like a documentary type thing. Mm-hmm. Then I watched, just the other night, I watched the Netflix special where they bounce a couple of shots back and forth. They don't really talk as much about, they cover the old store, but also talk about the new store in Charleston. So get to your question, they differ. I mean, Rodney is, every time I've been there, I think I've seen him working, and I haven't been in about a year, but I've seen him either working with staff or been in there. Now he's opening up another store in Birmingham and Atlanta, I think. So I can't imagine he's always in the Charleston store anymore. But the quality of the pulled pork and the whole hog is the same, because you can go right from your table, it's on King Street, on one end of King Street, you can walk out the door and you can go to the back screen, and it's a screened in open kitchen. Mm-hmm. And you can look through and you can see them cooking the whole hogs. And again, that's one of those, it is worth a pilgrimage to go see them do their thing and see those pits, and smell it and taste it. But I would say the pulled pork has got the exact same taste. There's a little bit of a old country store feel to the previous restaurant, or the old restaurant. I don't even know. I presume the Hemingway store is still going. I don't know that for a fact if it is or not. But there's a charm and old country store appeal to it that is a little bit different because I think the new store they can move a lot of people through, but the quality of food is, you know, the same, excellent.
Um, being from Illinois, living up there for a long time. Tell me what drew you to South Carolina and the Low Country. I spent many years going to Hilton Head, and still one of my favorite places to go on vacation. And it's a unique area. And a couple times when I was coming home, I took the back roads up to going up to Augusta. Drove through the Low Country, where that railroad track is on your left and all the towns are on your right,
Oh yeah,
and it doesn't change for miles and miles and miles. And
I
what's
made
your
that trip a lot of
yeah
times
what is your
because
what's your um, fascination with that part of the country, and what makes you stay there? Because a guy like you, I'm sure, has had opportunities to move around, maybe bigger markets, maybe a little different type of job. But it seems like, Augusta to Savannah to Charleston to Hilton Head, you're kind of ingrained in that area.
yeah, coming jumping from Chicago suburbs to Hilton Head was the biggest jump. But we just like maybe like you and like my wife, she vacationed Hilton Head for when she was young, and I did as well. So when I got into the workforce, the first opportunity I ended up getting was in a little radio station, WHHR, in Hilton Head. So took that opportunity, and unfortunately, although I think at the time I was thinking this would be the place to stay, and end up staying the whole time. It's beautiful. It's a little bit of, if you're trying to build a career, it's the land of make believe.
Yeah.
There's not, you can't really. Now it's kind of a Hilton Head Savannah market, but it's still hard to make a living doing that just in Hilton Head. Um, so I mean, we've got family here nonetheless. So that's the reason we've stayed here. But I met my wife here, and between here and Savannah, and when I was living here, and she always would love to be here in Hilton Head. So someday we'll be back
Yeah.
Hilton Head eventually. But went from Hilton Head, I think Savannah, did some time in Columbia and Augusta. Really, have been lucky enough to bounce around in South Carolina or Georgia. Um, I think when I was in Savannah doing radio for 6 or 7 years, I thought, this is a great place to live. I'd love to just stay here. It's just a great city,
Hmm.
and it is. I went there just a couple nights ago. There's some incredible things going down. We had some barbecue at this new JW Marriott complex downtown Savannah, which is weird right now trying to open that stuff up in COVID, but it's a world class complex on the Savannah River, and I would recommend anybody trying to make a trip there and see it. It's just unbelievable, great. But between Savannah and I did a bunch of years there and just uh, moving jobs with radio. Radio is kind of a transient business,
Yeah.
and I tried to always move up to bigger markets, as is the game. But I always thought when I got to Savannah, I thought I'd love to just stay here. Got great opportunities to do stuff with country radio, being involved with the country radio business. Went to Augusta. Uh, it's like a little bit bigger, and then got the opportunity to go with Clear Channel at the time from Augusta to Charleston, and so I've tried to stay in Charleston and enjoy that. It's a great city, good
Uh,
radio city.
People are literally moving to Charleston, South Carolina, in droves. It almost mirrors Nashville, where 80 to 100 people a day move to Nashville, and it has just become a booming metropolis here in Tennessee. People move to Charleston. They say be careful visiting there because you'll want to live there. I've got a friend of mine that moved from here in Ottawa. He moved to Charleston about 6 years ago, and you couldn't get him out of there with a crowbar. He loves it. What is the the metropolitan area like in Charleston as far as media, since you're a media guy, and does that give you good story ideas for your barbecue passion?
Um, Trying to figure out exactly what you mean by media. You know, we're a radio-sized market, and maybe even TV. It's considered market like somewhere between 60 and 80, with
Oh, that's
New
what I
York
meant.
being number one.
Yeah, right.
So, we're, in Charleston, in Savannah, in South Carolina, we're one of the bigger cities, but Columbia's booming too. I think
Hmm.
all of South, or a lot of South Carolina, and then further south, from what I've heard, is booming with people that have gotten fed up with life, either in the big city or life up north, whether it's cold weather. I can tell you, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and as a kid, I enjoyed shoveling snow for people and doing that. But I don't miss it. It's
Yeah,
nice to be down here where, today I think it was about 72 degrees out here, and it was a real beautiful day. But not all about the weather. But South Carolina's, it's a slower way of life. Since I made the transition, as at least as a 20-something-year-old adult. Uh, I think back in the day, I did see it as a slower way of life. I'm sure probably a lot of people would think that still. We still have our traffic issues depending on exactly where you live.
I'm sure you
Um,
do.
but it's nice to be South Carolina. It's great to be by the beach. Great to be. We've got a downtown. I don't venture downtown too much, quite honestly. I love it down there. It's awesome, but I I don't necessarily get down there that often. But yeah, it's there if I want to go. I live up in the I guess they call it the Plantation District. Up near Magnolia Gardens is one of the big famous gardens.
Hmm.
That's I ended up moving to that side of Charleston, and we like it up there. Again, still some traffic issues, but it's a great place to be. And then you're not far from the beaches anywhere.
In I don't know if you've seen it or not. Robert Moss, in his barbecue book, The History of an American Institution, he spends a lot of pages in South Carolina talking about the history of barbecue. Um, the different types, the different tastes, the different sauces that permeate through South Carolina and up in North Carolina. Do you get into that sort of thing? Looking at the different types of barbecue from region to region and try to study
Yeah,
some of that.
I mean, I think I talk a little bit about it in the book,
Yeah,
or in all of my books. I touch on it. I think it can be overly romanticized in some way, like every barbecue joint in South Carolina is, it's not going to be whole or West North Carolina is whole hog and mustard, and it's just not like that. You go to a place and they're going to have different sauces. I
hmm,
love a mustard sauce,
yeah.
but um, I don't think it's probably it's probably uncommon elsewhere. So I guess I take that for granted and I see it through a different lens. But um, that's probably, that and a white sauce is the most unusual, and I guess a vinegar-based sauce is unusual too, just the way North Carolina does it. But um,
You said something right there. White sauce. That is, that's everybody always talks about. It's an Alabama thing.
mhm.
Decatur, Alabama. Um, I that to me, and some people are going to go, "You're stupid." That is the most overrated condiment that you could put on a piece of chicken. And I know I know that famous restaurant in Decatur that's made a good living with his Alabama white sauce. But I have yet to have somebody come into my store and say, "Do you have any white sauce?"
I should remember this, but I don't remember if I'm sure I put the white sauce in here. Um, I like it, um,
I
and
like
I'm
it. I
seeing it.
like the taste. It is so easy to make. mayonnaise and horseradish and vinegar. You got white sauce.
Overrated.
Yeah, but it's just it's such a small portion of the makeup of barbecue, and people talk about it like it's the biggest thing ever, and it is so small, and it just kills me. It's
Well, it's
like,
big for Alabama,
yeah, it's big there.
and big. I guess it'd be Big Bob Gibson or
I
whatever.
didn't want to say. I didn't want to say because I don't want. I mean, that's barbecue royalty there, man. That's not. That's like talking about
Yeah,
the queen.
everybody's
You
got.
don't talk about.
I think that's been one of the things. Maybe at some point we need to come up with a barbecue tour book or whatever. I'm sure there are plenty of them. But I do find that part of it neat, but maybe overrated. Um, different places have their different styles of barbecue. My favorite, I'd said Scaniers is my favorite. I guess maybe one of my second favorite it would be Rendezvous in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily it's ribs. I guess it's barbecued ribs. It's charcoal, but it's not outdoor cooking. They're in a basement.
In the basement,
But I'd say, but it's definitely Memphis dry rub, that region. So I do like the mystique of different locations and almost a travel log of
I was just going to ask
barbecue.
is barbecue, is it the food or is it the place? Because when you go to Rendezvous, you think, man, I might be sitting in the same booth that Elvis, Jerry Lee, and Johnny did after a session over at Sun Records. And is it the place or is it the food for you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of that combination of both. It's the good food. I do like a good story behind it, a good heritage, but of course it's got to taste great too, right? And I think Rendezvous kind of checks out all those boxes. The one checkbox you might not get from Rendezvous. One of my rules of all places is you got to be able to smell the smoke, and I think you do smell it. Rendezvous is all about. They've got these charcoal fire pits in Memphis, but you go to a place you can smell it. You got the sites of some of these really cool places, and Rendezvous has all sorts of history behind it.
Mm-hmm.
But and if you're on vacation, having barbecue even better, right? So you get some time off and less stress, and you get to enjoy your barbecue.
I've got a friend that when he goes to a different barbecue place when he travels, first place he goes out back, and he said, "There's not a stack of wood, I ain't going in." He goes, "Because I know they're cooking with wood chips and propane," and he goes, "And I don't want any of it." And first he looks for the pile of wood. Even if there's a pile of wood back there, he's all about it. And I thought, I'm not quite that picky, but that's I mean that is sort of a telltale sign,
Yeah, I think the smell for me is more. You really want to smell it when you're going there actively cooking with wood. I think that does make a difference. But the other thing the reason I probably picked barbecue to talk about or to write about or to do videos about is because even bad barbecue for me is still pretty good.
Yeah.
So even if it's that's maybe one reason I'm not as tied into the competition scene. Some of the guys there get a little too intense. I just I like barbecue even when it's bad. I like barbecue. I like ribs, but I really like when it's hickory smoked, and I think you can do good barbecue. We talked about, I don't know if we did it off the air, but electric smokers. A cheap smoker, you can do great things. You can add some smoke to a gas grill easily enough. And I got some stuff on how to do it in the book. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's fun. Makes it more maybe a richer experience when you have to stay up all night. But sometimes it's fun to flip the switch on a pellet cooker and do it easily.
Well, the first part of the book is probably for somebody who's just getting into it or who has an interest in what else is out there. You go over all the different cookers, and then you go to the wood flavors. People ask me all the time in the store, what type of we sell pellet grills, and what kind of pellets go good with what kind of meat, and I'm always trying to pair it, pair it for them, and you do that in the wood flavor section. Just a tremendous, Bill, a tremendous amount of information in this book you've written, the big book of barbecue tricks. You even go through like what you need, a quick read digital meat thermometer. I tell everybody in a competition trailer, the two most important items in that trailer are the thermometer and the Cambro, something to hold the meat in and keep it hot. Those are the two most important tools you've got. They will make or break you at a barbecue competition. Whether you can make sure you can keep that food hot and you cook it to the right temperature. And I don't think that I think one of the things that backyard people are always worried about is temperature and time. They're always asking temperature and time, temperature and time. Well, temperature is important. Time you have no power over. Would you agree with that?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and they're both flexible. The nice thing about barbecue is it's forgiving, in the way that you can, to a certain extent. I've had a whole hog catch on fire and put it out and still,
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was a competition, but still have a great meal at the end. The first, have a grease fire with your first whole hog still didn't deter me. I still was able to rescue it and have a great meal.
Yeah, barbecue is finished when it's done. That's what I always tell people. There is no time. They always say how long per pound should you cook it, and everybody that does a recipe has to put that in there, but it's not etched in stone. You can't go by that all the time because every piece of meat's different, and I think, and the more I think people become more successful doing barbecue when they realize that it's not a race to the finish. It's more like a NASCAR race. It's a long, drawn out, boring thing between the start and the end. And but at the end, the last 20 laps, the last 10 minutes of a piece of meat are very exciting when you're getting ready to pull it off. So
that's a good way to put it.
Well, that's just the opinion from Ooltewah, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Digital remote thermometers you talk about.
Yeah, I don't tend to use much. I was going to ask you, since you got the shop there, what are people into with the digital thermometers and the instant read thermometers? I've got a Thermapen that I've had, and it just keeps on working for me, and it works great. But I do see a lot more inexpensive models that seem really good on Amazon for, $17 or,
Yeah.
or lower. Are they? You're in the shop. Are those as good, or are some of them junk?
They're good. I sell one that's only $19.95. It works great. I sell another one that's kind of between the $19.95 and the Thermapen price of $89. It's a $59.95. It's a super instant read thermometer. Instant read thermometers are like cameras or like telephones. The cost is coming down since everybody's using them now. The big thing, of course, in temperature now is Wi-Fi enabled. People want to be able to read it off their telephone. Everything they have to, it's everybody's moving. That I see, all the younger people that got eggs. The big green egg was the big thing, and all of a sudden, they saw their friends started getting pellet grills. And what I'm seeing in my neighborhood, you've got a guy with a green egg on his back porch, and it's there for the status, and it's never used. But he goes, "Yeah, I got a green egg," because if you're a backyard cook, you got to have a green egg, and right next to it's a Green Mountain Grill, the one that he uses every day. Or every weekend, because he goes out there.
I agree with that.
He goes out there in his church clothes, hits the button, goes to church, and then when he gets home, his pork butt's a third of the way done, and he doesn't have to. He can sit there. He can sit there during the homily, pull out his cell phone, look at it, and go, "Things are going good. Things are going good back at the house." And what does Bill West cook on when he's pandering
I
in
would
his
say
backyard?
my go-to is my Traeger, and trying to remember what the model is. Just the traditional Traeger. There's probably pictures of it in the book. Horizontal setup. Yeah, their main model. It's not the Timberland, but something like that. Traeger pellet, but it didn't start that way. Like I said, I did one of my books was um, on electric smokers,
Mm-hmm.
and I find great pleasure in that. I think that my electric smoker right now, the element, it keeps tripping the breaker, so I just have not been using it. But my Traeger just keeps on going and makes it real easy. I think there's a lot to say about pellet cookers making everything a lot easier. As far as they're so versatile, you can do something very low and slow, or if you want to crank it up to 400, 450, most models can do that. Um, it's probably not my first go-to, if I just want to sear a quick burger. Then I just got a quick little. I'll do a gas grill. It doesn't
Oh,
bother me at
absolutely,
all.
absolutely.
Um, uh, but uh, but I think for the most part, I'm using my Traeger,
You
and
know,
I've
I
got
know.
I've got a small little Weber that I use a lot, but that's usually, I don't enjoy propane as much. Propane and gas is just convenient.
Hmm.
So if I can, I'll try and put a little smoker pouch or something on there, and give it a little bit of smoke.
Well, I think you're like everybody else. You started with electric, inexpensive electric smoker, moved up to the. I'm sure you experimented with other things. You probably, if you hadn't owned a Kamado style cooker, you probably cooked on one or had a friend that,
Hmm.
that cooked on one. I had one at one time, and I kept it for a year. Kept trying to figure out what the aura and romanticism was about it. Could not figure it out. Hard to use. Couldn't cook a lot of food. Couldn't add wood. If your wood burned out, you had to add. If you wanted to add wood chunks, you had to take the whole thing apart and throw the wood chunk on the charcoal. Finally sold it to a guy. It just wasn't for me. And
I
then
think they're Yeah, I think I definitely see the appeal because they're, like you said, they've got the status, and
yeah,
uh, I think they can do great things, especially with high heat. Now, honestly, the trick I see that's popular, I talk about it a little bit in the book, is the sous vide the steak, sous vide an expensive steak, and then sear it on your big green egg.
yeah, that's that,
That's
that's
like the
yep,
ultimate in status right
yeah.
there.
That was I read that about Jack when you interviewed Jack in your book. He was talking about that. What are you into now? He goes, man, I'm into sous vide. He goes, I'm putting those steaks in bags, putting them in water, and then I'm taking them out and just searing them off. And by golly, it is a good steak, Bill. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't ventured into sous vide. I just ventured into pellet smokers back in January,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, and I became a real fan. I was when we opened the store, I was selling pit barrel cookers, which are fantastic. I love it. I've got a pit barrel in competition. I cook my ribs on a pit barrel because it is the best rib cooking vessel I've ever seen. But I could not make people understand how to use them and how easy it was to use one. I don't know if you've ever used one or not, but I'm sure
I
you're.
haven't, and it's for that reason. Steve. I see them, and I don't know how it fits on my if I had a wood patio or whatever on my wood patio or the small patio space I have. I mean, I kind of like the idea and the look, and I think they look cool, but um, charcoal more and more gets to be
Yeah,
uh, a messier
exactly.
proposition for me.
Exactly. And then, so we were having a hard time selling them. And so I thought, well, there's got to be something out there. And so I talked to some friends about these pellet smokers. And I got to admit, Bill, I was kind of one of those snobs. I looked down on them a little bit. They ain't cooking. That's just, you don't have any fire management skills or nothing. And then as soon as I started using them, I said, the heck with fire management skills. These things are making good food and it tastes good. And one of my friends in this business is David Bosca, Butcher Barbecue, and he's cooked on pellet smokers his entire competition career. And he won a little contest in 2018 in Lynchburg, Tennessee, called the Jack Daniel's World Invitational. So somebody's doing something right, and it's just they're fantastic. And I don't care whose brand you buy. I don't care. I sell Green Mountains. You have a Traeger. There's Camp Chefs. There's Rectex. There's Yoder's, everything out there. And but they all basically work the same, and they work perfectly, and it brings more people to low and slow cooking.
I wish I had a copy of the other book I did. Have you seen the wood pellet grill book I did?
I have not.
Okay, that's totally good. I didn't know if you had seen those, but talking about the trajectory of me doing these books, we've talked about a couple of these things. My first one was kind of called The Barbecue Blueprint, was kind of on whether to do competition barbecue or not. And I got a little wrapped up in the world with Jack, Jack Waybor, who's such an expert in it. But that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of. It can be expensive to compete, and it mainly takes trying to fit it into a weekend is tough. So that was a little bit about the first book. Then I got a call from the publisher asking about electric smoker, and I thought, doggone it, my first smoker was an inexpensive, I think I bought it at a garage sale for $20, a Brinkmann bullets, and it taught me everything I really needed to know and did great barbecue. So I'm like, yeah, I can write that book. I have an appreciation for electric smokers. And then they called me again saying, we're looking to do a pellet book. And within that time, since I'd written the first one, or actually before, for a couple of years, I'd been using that Traeger, which I had done videos on, and had become a fan of pellets. So the timing is right for each one of these books that I've been lucky enough to have the opportunity to do. And it's kind of like what you're saying. These smokers are, I think there's a reason why pellet cookers are catching. There's no wrong way to do it. And pellet cookers do such a good job of putting out great food and keeping it easy, yet still having enough of I remember the first time I saw one of the pellet cookers, that jet engine in there, it still has enough of the gee whiz gadget stuff that, that gets guys revved up a little bit. Have you seen this video that was floating around about what a Traeger, a typical Traeger guy sounds like? I'll have to send you a link to it. I saw it somewhere of I think it was going viral on what, how you're talking to a Traeger owner.
No, I haven't seen it, but I could only imagine.
Yeah, it's funny. It's comedy.
Well, they're very efficient cookers, and anything that makes people get outside and cook. And because I'm gonna tell you, Bill, you know as well as I do. Anytime when you go outside and cook, usually, I know when I wheel out the smokers on the side of the house in my driveway, I draw a crowd. Everybody who's walking in the neighborhood, they come down. What are you doing now? What are you doing now? What's this? I'll bring out my big competition gravity feed, and they'll say, "How does that work? What is that?" And they're interested in it, and then they'll tell you what they've got. Well, I've got a green egg, and yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I'm all about the green egg. It just wasn't for me. When I wheel out the pellet smoker now, they'll come by and go, "How does that work?" I say, "Oh, this thing's like falling off a log. It's easy. Set it and forget it. It hooks to your telephone. Anything that hooks to a telephone now is big. If you whatever grill you've got, if you can make it hook to a telephone, you'll sell it, because that's what people want."
That's never been my cup of tea, but I can definitely see the appeal, and definitely a good reason for doing. Anytime you can avoid opening up the lid, which is one of the biggest things people need to remember, that's a good thing.
Yeah, But with the pellet cookers now, that if you're looking, you're not cooking, you can throw that out the window because those things catch up so quick. I
They
mean, they
do.
just that you hear that secondary fan click on it, it starts burning those pellets, and it just it pops the temperature right back up there. But
Yeah.
they're great. I mean, everything, anything that you cook on that you're comfortable with, I think is great for anybody.
Absolutely.
I never throw down on anybody's vessel that they're cooking on because, like we said, you never know anybody's economic status, space status. I didn't realize until I started selling smokers what a premium people put on their deck space. I've always joking about counter space. When I see people like, I would get a bullet, but I don't have the counter space for it right now. I'm not going to dedicate. The things that they have on their counter there's a pecking order, and no, I'm not leaving. No, the quick sealer's got to stay. So they don't have any counter space. But I had no idea how precious backyard deck space was until I started selling smokers, and people would come in and whip out a tape measure and go, "This won't fit. Do you have another size?" Well, yeah. Oh, this one's too little. I need one this size. And I've had people walk out of the store because I didn't have the right size cooker. And
Yeah, it's about as much. I do think my first Traeger was I did a video with them, and I got it just for cross promotion. But I often think I didn't need the big one
mm-hmm.
for that can 8 butts on it. I could have gotten easily the smaller one, and I tell people that a lot when I recommend the pellets. The bigger ones are more expensive. You don't really,
Yep.
I mean, unless you're got a family of 9, you don't really need all that. I don't think you need as much grill space as people think.
No, you don't. But I always tell people nobody ever said I wish I had a smaller grill. So
That's true.
If you can afford the big grill, get the big grill. Bill West, it has been a tremendous honor talking to you. Your new book,
Been my pleasure.
The Big Book of Barbecue Tricks, folks. It is on Amazon. Go to it and buy this book. It is excellent. The interviews are excellent. The information is second to none. It is by a guy just like you and me that has journeyed through barbecue and picked up tips, picked up tricks. But the difference about Bill West, folks, is he has talked with people that have used these tips and tricks along the way, and he knows that they work, and they'll work for you. And if you just use them, you'll become a better cook and a better barbecue person. And
hopefully
I just opened the book to the big, beautiful brisket. Brisket is my zen. I am the brisket whisperer, and I love all things brisket, Bill.
Hopefully, it's just fun to read too, because I try and make it humorous anyway.
Yeah, it does show that, and good for you, Bill. I could go on with you for 2 more hours tonight.
Hey, Steve, I will say I know starting probably Sunday, I marked down my first book. Well, I couldn't do it with this one. I had done it already, but I marked down the Barbecue Blueprint on Kindle. If people like the ebook versions, go there this like Saturday or Sunday, and you should be able to get it for 99 cents. So just a little
sweet
extra thing while you're out shopping.
And I'm sure we will see you on the barbecue show talk circuit coming up as people buy your book and see your book is available. They'll be contacting you. So everybody watch social media for Bill West. He will be on a station or a show close to your heart very, very soon. Bill, thank you so much. Enjoy Hilton Head, and when you go down to Hudson's, tell that guy that's down there singing on the deck that Steve Ray said, hey, he'll the old Hudson's, the one
Hudson's,
yeah, and he'll remember me, I'm sure.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, Bill West coming to you from Hilton Head Island, but he lives in Charleston, South Carolina now. He's on a little holiday down in Hilton Head. Everybody, thank you for watching tonight on the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show here on Facebook Live. We'll be back next Friday night. We will be live on Facebook, and we will also be live on Talk Radio 102.3. Until then, have a great rest of the weekend on this Thanksgiving weekend. Be safe. Drive safely. If you're at Grandma's house and you have to go home, please drive safely. And we'll see you here next Friday night on the Owl's Nest Barbecue Show on Facebook and on Talk Radio 102.3.